Hello everybody, this is Eli from Elfbait, and welcome back to the Dungeons & Dragons 30-Day Challenge. Today is day 16, and that brings us to favorite ooze or aberration type. Now that's really kind of a broad range there. I mean, oozes and aberrations, while there is slightly some crossover there, I mean, really they're very different monsters. So I think I'm actually going to answer both of these. My favorite ooze or slime or jelly or something like that, they all kind of function the same. But what I really like are the jellies and stuff that have special characteristics, or the oozes and stuff, the ones that can split or splatter or whatever. One of my favorites is actually not in 5th edition outside of being just a straight dungeon obstacle or dungeon fauna listed in the DMG. And that's the green slime. I like, back in the day, the green slime was one of the most dreaded things in the dungeon. Rust monsters, green slimes, I get yellow thumbs because printer cartridges. Rust monsters, green slimes, carrion crawlers, those were like the 3 big dungeon fauna that you would run into that would just plague you. I mean, carrion crawlers would paralyze you. There was also rot grubs. You'd have to worry about those being in every pile of crap you'd find in the dungeon. But the slimes, green slime was always big and nasty if it got on you. It would fill entire rooms. It would drip down off the ceilings. And it was the sort of monster that, if you busted into a door, kicked down a door, and you came in and there was a green slime in there, your day was generally ruined. You were whipping out fire attacks or something to that effect to try and get rid of it, but it would also turn whatever it got into more green slime. So that would be my favorite slime, ooze, jelly. The russet mold is also a good one. I like how that infects people. And then the yellow musk creeper, which I guess is technically a plant, but it kind of fills the same gaps anyways. And there really is not well, I guess there's a plant one coming up, so I jumped the gun a bit. But anyways, favorite aberration. So my favorite aberration, it's got to be mind flayers. I like illithids. They've been very well developed for a long time in D&D. They do tie into the origins and the background of one of my other favorite monsters from D&D, which is the Githyanki, and also the Githzeri, or just the Gith in general. And so having mind flayers in the game can really just mix it up. I like the fact that mind flayers exist at multiple levels. You've got elder brains, you've got regular mind flayers, you've got the threat of mind flayer, tadpoles, which could be in something, and then your characters are get infected. There are the Alhoon. There are, it goes on. And if you follow some of the Dragon magazines before, especially in like the 3.5 days, there were a lot of articles on all sorts of cool mind flayer symbionts and stuff, almost the mind flayer equivalent of their own magic items, and even older set of articles in Dragon magazine, I think back in the 80s or 90s, did an article on the ecology. Well, of course you had the ecology articles on the mind flayer, but they did several articles over the time that covered the creatures that associate with mind flayers, and it paints this picture that wherever the mind flayers came from, a lot of the monsters that we associate with D&D came with them. Like carrion crawlers evidently came with, at least in some iterations, came with the mind flayers. In some places, in some settings, or in some ways, shriekers, violet fungi, all these things, a lot of these dungeon oddities came with the mind flayers from wherever it is that they came. So there's this ecology, this extended mythos to the mind flayers. In one of my campaigns that I ran, the world-ending event that was leading, that the game was leading to, was a collision with a chunk of an exploded mind flayer world that was hurtling towards the planet. So it was, they were running into advanced scouts because it was on its way, but the mind flayers with their vast powers and minions and stuff like that were kind of paving the way, trying to see what this world was that they were going to collide with, and then take over. Was the idea? There's an impending mind flayer invasion. It was kind of a sci-fi meets D&D sort of a thing. But with mind flayers, you get not only a badass monster, it's going to hold its own in combat, but then it has the ability to have subversive plot lines, mind controls in there. I mean, so villages could be at the sway of mind flayers. You can have mind flayer agents that are working out there. Mind flayers are smart monsters, so even if they're not directly controlling an enemy, they can certainly go ahead and manipulate them through other means. They know the value of money. Even though they're alien and their mindset is very alien, they're not dumb enough to where they don't recognize, the value of uninfected minions. If you can pay a guy off, they certainly will. I mean, there's not. It's no accident that there's a mind flayer in, the organized crime organization for Waterdeep in the Forgotten Realms. There are these are smart creatures. These are schemers and planners that with a bent for destruction of other species or subjugation of other species. Like they did with the Gith. The Gith were just gnarly enough to get away, which is why they look like a 80s metal album cover. But they're just, the Gith are just too metal to be under the control of the mind flayers. But you can have your party get infected with them. You can have NPCs get infected with them. There is lasting damage that can be done from an unsuccessful or partially successful mind flayer attack. I mean, they're talking about burrowing their tentacles into your head and eating your brain. We played in our games that when a mind flayer does that, there's that brief moment where you and the mind flayer are connected as they're getting ready to consume your brain. And so what could come from that? I mean, you had that glimpse into this alien mindset. For another setting I'm working on, there's a tribe. It's kind of an Underdark type thing, but it's not the Underdark. There is a chief of a tribe of Quaggoths who is super intelligent, or at least super intelligent by Quaggoth standards, because he has somehow managed to survive having his brain eaten by a mind flayer, in that the mind flayer's head was cut off while it was in mid-feeding. It stayed linked, and through whatever weird science that is the mind flayer, it is now it's attached to him as part of his head. It's basically giving him a brain boost. And so this tribe of Quaggoths has this super smart leader who has basically this mind flayer head that he wears, and it's now been dressed up with all sorts of plumage and stuff, so it looks like this funky headdress for his tribe. But yeah, I mean, there's just a lot you can do with a mind flayer. Most aberrations share a lot of this in common. I mean, an aboleth is certainly down there and can manipulate people and stuff. It's very Lovecraftian as it sits there in a deep, wet place, and with its psychic abilities. But so is, there's definite Lovecraft influence in mind flayers. So you could also go that angle. Mind flayers make really good bad guys for if you're doing like a horror or macabre or weird sci fantasy type of a setting. Mind flayers shift over to science fiction super easy. There's nothing there in every way, shape, and form. A classic tentacle space monster who wants to eat your brain. I mean, that's so science. That's basic science fiction. We come to you. We want your brains. So mind flayers for aberration. Green slime for oozes and slimes. Those are my favorites there. I would say another one I love that's got to get an honorable mention because just really, it kind of actually is on both. I would consider this kind of halfway between. The gibbering mouther, or gibbering mouther, however you want to pronounce it, is kind of both. He's a face it, they're kind of Shoggoth-y things, but you know they're an aberration, and then they're also very much ooze slimy. It'd be very weird to have actually the same setting I have that has the Quaggoth with the Mind Flayer head as a crown also has a kingdom ruled by an insane Gibbering Mouther who they worship as sort of a god king. Gibbering Mouthers are already kind of insane anyways, but this one's just insane enough to be crafty. So his insanity is that he's actually a little bit more stable and knows what he's doing. So he sits on this big throne and oozes his way around while this population serves him. Sort of like, you know, it's a little nod, tip of the hat to Lovecraft type stuff where you have these underground lost societies where there's these weird connections with strange alien creatures. So yeah, that's going to be day 16 for favorite oozes and favorite aberrations. It's a weird one, but and I got this posted a little bit late. It's been a long day. I started the day talking to the great guys over at Nerdarchy. Dave, thank you very much for having me on. Some interesting conversation over there. So if you haven't checked that out, I did post a link in the Facebook group for Elfbait earlier. So you can go back and watch it. You won't be able to see the chat feed, but that's okay. I answered some questions, outed myself as a sculptor and also as a miniatures gamer as well. So there was a lot of conversation on that. If you have questions, certainly put them in the comments below. Want to give a shout out real quick to all the new folks who joined Elfbait after my conversation with Dave. You're welcome aboard. I very much appreciate you guys coming to check out what I'm doing, my little corner of the gaming help video universe. It's still me in my garage. It's still my camera phone. I'm not pushing for, I'm not up to the next level where I'm going Patreon or anything like that. But, it starts with people having an interest and showing me that this is something that's worth doing, that's worth expanding on and worth growing. But that starts with comments, conversations, friendly argument in the sense of, debated points. But they all go down in the comments below. Like, share, and subscribe, and I will be cranking out more of these 30-day challenges, as well as some other videos that are off of that track. I know I've kind of been focusing on those, and I'll probably be doing multiples in a day, so you'll probably see a lot of the same shirt back to back, and I do apologize. It's that, or I lie to you and change my shirt and pretend it's a different day. But thanks a lot for coming by and checking out Elfbait again. Welcome to all the new people again, all the new subscribers, all the new followers, new people over on the Elfbait Facebook group. That's good too. I am also on G+, so don't forget that outlet. It's lesser used because, so is Google+, but and that's debatable. I know I've got a lot of friends and folks over there. I am also on Twitter, also as Elfbait, so if you want to throw me a comment over there. Always looking for questions to answer, ideas for new videos. Anyways, this is Eli from Elfbait. Thanks for tuning in. Get out and game.